Welcome back, everyone. I'm so excited to be back on the mic and talking to you guys. Today's episode is all about solo travel, smart travel, and doing it by yourself. And with the limited time, I planned my trip to South by Southwest literally the week before I was going. I did it within budget. I did it with the universe having my back. Honestly, I think that's how I did it. But I have all my tips that I'm going to share with you all today. Welcome back to She's Interesting. I missed you all. I'm Rochelle Hariri, founder of She's Interesting and host of this incredible podcast and media network. In today's episode, we are talking all about solo travel, smart travel, and getting yourself to the right conferences so that you can network and make an impact for your business and for your career. I went to South by Southwest last week and I booked all of it. I'm not even kidding when I say I booked my South by Southwest trip within a matter of days. I had been in conversations with some folks that I knew who were going to South by Southwest, and I just wasn't sure if I was ready to make that commitment, if it was going to be worth it. Just for context, the last time I had been to South by Southwest was 2019, and it was with a work trip. And although it was a good work trip, it was overwhelming. There was so much going on. There was tons of activations everywhere. And if you didn't have tickets, you couldn't get in and you had to register. It was really complicated at the time to understand where to go. Obviously, since 2019, many things have changed. And so now that I'm living in the States, I was like, I need to go to South by Southwest. So basically, I had been thinking about this and ruminating about it for a while and thinking, should I go? Should I not go? Which honestly, advice for anyone, if you're ever thinking, should you go or should you not? Just go. The answer is just go. So I basically, a week before I was going to go to South by Southwest, decided to book my flight, find my accommodations, and I wasn't buying a ticket to the conference because I didn't want to go to the sessions. I was mainly there for networking. That was my purpose. So I booked everything a week in advance, and honestly, it worked out for me. It was one of those like universe take control and guide me to meet the right people, to be in the right places, and like give me that sense of security, essentially. So I made the call. I booked my flight. I got my flight from Arkansas to Austin within budget. I think I got really lucky. My flight was less than $300 to get there. And especially booking a week in advance, you'd think that I would get like the worst travel schedule, but no, I still had access to some really good flights and it didn't take me too long to get there. It worked out fine. In addition to that, I was then looking for accommodations. And when I tell you, it is so expensive going to South by Southwest. So make sure if you're going, you don't do what I did. Don't plan a week in advance. I don't recommend it, but I had looked everywhere. I looked at all the hotels. Minimum, the most basic, hideous hotels were like $500 a night. If you wanted to stay at the Fairmont, just a basic room in the Fairmont was $1,000. Four Seasons was like double that. I don't even want to talk about how much that cost. So my strategy was Airbnb. Thank you, Airbnb, for saving the day, because I went on Airbnb. I was zooming in and out of the map, like literally like nobody's business. I was searching everywhere, and it got to a point where I was just about to give up on going to South by because I thought, well, I can't find accommodation. I'm not spending solo like $500 to $1,000 a night to stay at some like cheap looking hotel. But it all worked out. And when I tell you this was like a miracle, the universe, God telling me you need to go to this conference, because I zoomed into East Austin on the map and I found the cutest Airbnb. I swear it must have been somebody canceled and that's how I found it. But it was a guest house in East Austin and it was so cute. It was like a separate unit from the home. And I got that for under $300 a night. And it was so cute. It was so Austin. I'll insert some pictures and videos of the space so you guys can see what it looked like, but it was perfect. Especially as a female solo traveler, I couldn't have asked for a better stay. I actually slept so well at night. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes when I travel and I'm alone in a new place, I don't get the same deep, heavy REM sleep, but this was just like perfection for me. And I'm so happy that it worked out. I made the decision to go to South by Southwest because I'm new to the States and I want to build my network here. Sure, I know a lot of Americans, but honestly, in comparison to coming from Canada, I'm like in Canada 1 degree of separation from anybody that I would potentially want to meet and network with. But in the States, which is a market that is 10 times the size of Canada, it's a bit different. Like you really have to put yourself out there. You have to actively network. You have to try. It's so interesting and so different at the same time. And so I felt like South by Southwest being the first thing that I'm going to do solo was probably my best decision, and I'll explain why. So if you're considering going to South by Southwest, it is like just a mixture of art and creativity and technology. There's VCs there, there's founders there, there are all sorts of incredible, really, really smart people there. So you're going into it knowing that there's other people there, and you're all there for the purposes of connecting, networking, and building relationships, which I felt like was a really friendly environment to go the first time traveling by myself. And so the first thing that I did, and this is my tip for anyone who's going to be going to events or is considering going to South by in 2026, get your hands on the list of events. So there's a lot of folks that are in Austin and they create these list of events. It's like their own Austin guide. So they'll have all of the events categorized in an Excel sheet or a Google sheet, all of the links to the events where you can register, details about the events, and then they even categorize it for you so that you know, like, this is a media event, this is a tech event, this is a creators event. And I really love that. That really helped me. I got my hands on about 3 or 4 different event lists. So if you're going, 100% recommend that's what you do. If you're considering going, send me a DM on Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever, and I can share some of the lists that I have this year. The reason why I think the list from this year will still be relevant next year is because it has the information of the person who created the list. So that way you can follow their list in 2026 if you're planning to go. So anyways, the vibes were fantastic. When I was first arriving, I had this kind of moment of panic where I thought, it wasn't panic, but I just had this moment where I was thinking, oh my God, I'm getting overwhelmed already. I just landed in Austin and I know that there's so many events. How am I going to make sure that I'm connecting with the right people? And so for me, the right people were, I wanted to connect with investors because I'm working on an AI startup with my co-founder. I wanted to connect with people in the media space because I'm continuing to grow. She's interesting, and more on that coming in another episode. And I wanted to meet with founders because for my consulting business, it made sense to connect with founders and pitch them my services. I got there, I took a breath, and I was like, you know what? I am going to just go with the flow. If you know anything about human design, I'm a generator. And so the biggest frustration for generators is when we're pushing, and things are not working out. And so the best thing that you can do as a generator is just like sit back and let things happen. And so I said like this little prayer to the universe, prayer to God, whatever you believe in, that I am just here. Guide me to meet the right people, bring the right people on my path. And that basically set the tone for the rest of my trip. It was amazing. So I got in my Uber, got to my Airbnb, absolutely cute, completely loved the place. And I'm happy to link it in this episode. So if anybody wants to go to Austin, they can stay at this Airbnb because it was great. I will say East Austin has a bit of a mix in the neighborhood. So you have to be a little bit careful, especially if you're going out at nighttime. But honestly, I didn't feel any sense of fear or anything like that. I was pretty comfortable with where I was staying. My strategy for South by Southwest was to go through that Excel sheet that I mentioned earlier and plan out which events I wanted to go to. My calendar was stacked. When I tell you, my Sunday was like event over event over event. Like there was so many overlaps in my schedule, but I still made it work. So that's my advice to you is go into any trip or conference that you're planning with an intention of what you're hoping to get out of it, and then stick to that as closely as possible. I did end up going to some events that I wasn't planning, like HubSpot had an event and I met up with a friend and she's like, let's go, you should come. It was my last night. I went. Fabulous. I met some really great people. So for anyone who is not as outgoing and extroverted, just know that, and this is my secret recipe to networking, is just know that everybody else also wants to feel seen. They want to feel validated. And so if you're going to an event or a networking event, just be the first to go and say hello. The worst thing you want to do is to be standing in a corner or standing by the bar or, whatever your safety is. Step out of that. Go introduce yourself to people. I cannot express how many times I just walked up to a group of people, and as uncomfortable as I felt, I would just walk up to them with a big smile and be like, hi, can I join you guys? Or, hey, how are you guys liking South by? Or, how are you liking this event or whatever the entry point would be. And then I would introduce myself to every single person that was there. And then we would just start talking and the conversation would get rolling. I'm not afraid to interrupt a group of people. Obviously, I kind of scope it out. So make sure if you're going to approach someone, you're sort of like Like, does this look like a very intense conversation? Are they talking about business? Should I not enter at this stage? Most of the time you'll find people are having very surface level conversations, or they're just grouping and meeting each other. And so it's a great avenue for you to go to say hello. Another thing I do is if I see someone who is kind of standing by themselves, sitting by themselves, I go and introduce myself to them. I just do that because I think it's a good thing to do. Sometimes people are just taking a break, or they are shy, or they're feeling a bit uncomfortable. And so by you going to approach them and saying, hey, how's it going? I guess you're sitting down, or like, have you gone to, I don't know, like the buffet? Whatever it is, like just get that conversation going with them, go say hello. And you really never know where the conversation could take you and who that person could be. I had a really great experience where I was at a networking event. It was for women in business. And there's this awesome woman. She was sitting down. She was kind of by herself. And I just went over and I was like, hey, what are you doing sitting down? Like, I wanted to just come and say hi to you. And she was like, oh, I'm like overstimulated. There's just so much going on at this event. And we had a moment where I was like, yeah, I kind of feel you. There's a lot going on. And then we just started talking, and we actually realized that we had so much in common, and there's the potential that we might work together in the future. So you just never know who you're going to bump into at events. The only way I survived planning a trip to South by Southwest a week in advance and getting to all of the events that I wanted and networking and connecting with the right people was because I was hyper vigilant about my calendar. I had calendar blocking for everything that I was doing, everywhere I was going. I had reminders for myself. I even had updates in my calendar when I would change something or a new event would come. I had reminders for when I needed to leave. So for example, if I had an event that was going from 11 to 1, but I had another event that's starting from 12 to 3, I would put a reminder in my calendar, like, you better get out of there by 12:30. Do not over network. Do not over commit. That's one of my biggest piece of advice, is be really, really strict with your calendar and keep your eye on the prize if you're networking. What I also suggest is setting up meetings with people in advance if you know that they are going. So there were some folks that I wanted to meet with. So I made sure that I had specific time frames where I scheduled, if it was like a coffee connect or a lunch or something, that I had that in my calendar. But I will say I did that only after I had signed up for all of the events that I wanted to go to. Keep that in mind. You need to keep yourself organized when you go to these events. On a daily basis, I was meeting dozens of people. I would walk away in a day having met 20, 30 people, and just trying to sometimes remember their name, what company they worked at, would be so difficult for me. My memory, short-term memory, is not the greatest. And so what I do now is I have my notes app, and I'll put like a visual of it. I have my notes app. I categorize it by day. I put down the person's name. I put down what we talked about, and I put down in my notes, is there a takeaway, right? Am I supposed to reach out to them? Are they supposed to reach out to me? What is the next step from this conversation? Some of the people that I met, they were just really cool people, and we hit it off, and that was it, right? Like, I would just put their name, I'd add them on LinkedIn, and that was it. But there was specific conversations I had where there was a takeaway, and I wanted to make sure that within the week, or within, like a few days of the conference ending, that I followed up with those people if we wanted to partner together, if there was an opportunity for us to join forces in business. Those were really important for me to capture. So always have your notes on hand. You can also add photos in your notes app, which is really cool. So if you took a picture with them, if something really interesting happened, put that all in your notes app, and then you can just upload that later into ChatGPT or whatever platform you're using to maintain your communications. I wanted to keep this podcast episode really brief and just share with you guys the energy that I'm bringing into 2025, especially when it comes to She's Interesting. It's the year of trying new things. It's the year of stepping out of our comfort zone, and it's the year of not trying to control so much. That's the biggest lesson that I've ever learned, is when I try to control things and I try to really force my vision or my way, or, I feel like I'm swimming against the tide. It really is exhausting, and it leads to burnout. And so this episode is just me grabbing the mic and sharing with you guys what I was up to at South by. And if there's any takeaway that you have from this episode, it should be that if you're thinking about doing something, just do it, because you're thinking about it for a reason, and it's going to turn out really well. I got an amazing flight, amazing Airbnb, an excellent experience, walked away meeting so many new people at South by Southwest and really growing my network. And so in the future, if I'm ever thinking about going to a conference, instead of thinking like about my readiness factor and if I should go, I'm just going to focus on what's my budget, what's my intention, who do I need to meet, and then go with that. I definitely think putting it out into your network that you're going to these events and finding other people that you can share information with is super helpful. That's kind of like a cheat code for going to these conferences and not getting lost, is reach out to people that are going. There's all of these lists and things that are floating around, and get your hands on that and then plan your plan of attack, basically. If you are hesitant about going to events by yourself, I 100% recommend it. If you go with a friend, oftentimes you guys are too coupled with each other to break apart and meet new people. And so that completely goes against what you're there to do, which is to meet new people. So I 100% love going to networking events alone because I don't like to be tied down to anybody. I just want to go meet people, work the room, and then get out of there, you know? And so there's nothing more powerful than stepping into a room and knowing that you belong there and feeling like you belong there, not because you were invited or not because your friend is taking you along, but because you made the decision to go and you made the decision to sign yourself up. And that is why you are worthy to be at that event. This is why I love networking alone. I love going with my friends too, don't get me wrong. But when you go by yourself, it just gives you the opportunity to be untethered and to work the room, meet new people, and really put yourself out there. And I think if you're someone like me who constantly likes to push my limits and learn and test things, it's a great feeling when you go somewhere by yourself and you're like, man, I was a little bit uncomfortable when I first got there, but by the time I left, I really felt like I belonged in that room. If this episode gave you even 1 ounce of confidence to go out and travel by yourself, attend a conference by yourself, go to a networking event that you normally would not go unless you had a friend with you, I think that's a win. And I am rooting for you. Let's keep working with that confidence. Let's work with that energy in 2025. If you all have any questions about traveling solo or just want to hit me up with some DMs or have any questions about South by, just let me know. You guys can find me on Instagram at She's Interesting Media. Also make sure to follow us on LinkedIn. Our LinkedIn community is growing. We're almost at 800. It's amazing. So definitely feel free to reach out to me there. Also, I'm putting a big ask out to the community. We need more reviews on She's Interesting on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify. And also please subscribe to the YouTube channel. But definitely go leave us a review, 5 stars all the way if you enjoyed this episode and my ramblings. I promise the future episodes will be a bit more structured. But honestly, I just got back from South by and I was feeling a little bit chatty. So thank you all for tuning in. Love you all so much. Appreciate your support. Big things coming for She's Interesting.